profound. And you're like, nah, you're gonna dig some rocks into the ground, dude, and people are gonna look at you funny.
Hi folks, welcome to the Beloved Presence podcast. This is Leslie Davidson and I am your High Priestess of Holy Shit. So welcome to part 2 of my collab with Śivani from Solace and Shine. Śivani is an intuitive artist and a medium and a sannyasin on the yogic path. She has an ashram in the Purcell Mountains in BC, where they have a bakery and a farm and they do courses. Today's episode, man, we talked about so much. We talk about yoga ecology and being indigenous to place, and we talk about writing, and we talk about language, and we try basically to normalize the conversation that plants, animals, land, earth are equal to beings, that we are nature and nature is kin.
So what do you see happening? Because I know you're a medium and I know you practice practice prophecy. I don't know how to say that properly. In Irish it's called Tor.
I'm not a crystal ball. I don't
No.
I very consciously try not to see what's going to happen, but sometimes I get shown in time, space as an illusion what is already possible now. If we can calibrate to it. Yeah. So it's not like, well, this is going to happen and then this is going to happen, because I'm a terrible gambler. You know, if I say it's black, then it's red. And, you know, so I learned a long time ago not to do that. But that the light beings that I work with. So I work with a series of light beings that are sort of my team. And then I also work as a medium for people that are nonverbal or have advanced Alzheimer's. Who can't speak, and I will support their families by channeling their guides.
Interesting. Yes,
to give
that's
them
awesome.
An understanding of what their experience is, so that they can make the decisions for their family members that resonate better and not just intellectual.
Right. Awesome.
Which is pretty cool. But the light beings that I work with, they're not. They keep saying to me that, one, we're ahead of schedule. They're very happy. Yeah, when they say that, they're like, you guys are like going for it. I'm like, I'm not here to muck about, dude. I agreed to the meat suit, but that does not mean that this is fun. And I remember what it's like to not have the meat suit. So, you know, let's get going. And do show me that the layers of waking up that is happening right from the crystalline DNA in the waters, and how that filters into the plants, actually waking up in a way that remembers, oh, we can now live in harmony with humans again, because the humans I was asked to go to invited by the beings to go to Mexico at the end of January. And I was told that there's a ley line between where I live now and which is, you know, I reside on the unceded territory of the Tinaha Nation in the Purcell Mountains. And there's a ley line that goes from here down to the base of the Santa Maria Mountains down at the base of Mexico. And so I was invited to take 3 things from this land here that resonate from here, where we do all of these mantras and all of the sadhana and, you know, these practices, and then take them down to where the spring comes out of the mountains, of the Santa Maria Mountains. And they showed me specific frequencies to call in, to ask to come, and to ask to seed this into the waterfall, so that the waterfall, as the water went over these things, it would resonate to wake up the DNA of the water. Then all the people drinking that water, all of the plants absorbing that water, would come into a remembrance. And, you know, when you're there and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be so magical and everything. Well, I don't think like that anymore, but I know people like go to things and they're like, it's gonna be profound, and you're like, nah, you're gonna dig some rocks into the ground, dude, and people are gonna look at you funny, and
there's gonna be mosquitoes, and maybe you're gonna get diarrhea.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna throw up for 24 hours, and it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be real.
It's gonna be real, exactly. But there's two things that happened that made me go. One of them was about 20 minutes after I did what I was asked to do. Our guide, a gentleman from that area, very connected to oh my God, the wisdom, the ecology wisdom that this man holds is absolutely beautiful. I could just listen to him talk all day about his relationship with the land and the birds and the animals and the turtles. He's just beautiful. And I went for a swim in the waterfall afterwards and received the 3 rocks from the waterfall that wanted to come here with me and then to Arizona in October, which is my next stop. And then he turned to me and he looked at me and he went, I was here yesterday and this did not feel like this yesterday. This feels like when I was on mushrooms. Something is different. This is really weird, he said. Like I feel like I'm in a trance. He used the word trance. I feel like I'm in a trance, like I was on mushrooms or something. This is really weird. Something has changed. And I was like, that's interesting. Good to know that you feel that. And then within 24 hours, there was an earthquake here.
Oh.
Just 20 minutes from here. We never get earthquakes. We are not in earthquake territory. And 20 minutes from this property into the heart of the mountains, there was a 3.8 earthquake within 24 hours. And it was really profound. And now they're like, and now in October, the last half of October, you have to go to Sedona and do the same thing. And I'm like, okay.
I love that. I love all of that. Like, I think this message is important to get out too, that these small acts are profound. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to save the whole earth. Do you know what I mean? Like every action towards any being is helping the whole. Like your backyard is the earth. Everything that you do is in your own earth is
and you don't have to
earth.
Fly to places and do this. And if I didn't, somebody else would have. There's more than just me capable of doing these things. It just happens that I really like Mexico, so I'm like, yo, okay, let's go to Mexico.
Well, you wanted to do it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not me that has to do this work. If I am unable or unwilling to step up, there are other beings that are capable and will be asked to step up, and finally somebody will say yes. I'm in for the adventure.
Do what you're called to do. Like, yes, awesome.
Yeah.
Like, great. I think it's great. It's what's needed. I have a question about like, I keep getting the sense that what role do you feel that Indigenous peoples on Turtle Island in particular are playing for this? Or or do you know? Is that something that you would know? Is that none of our business? Do you know what I mean? Like, because I just keep getting the sense over and over that like there's a partnership that that needs to happen. But I don't know what that means.
I can't say that I have answers or I understand. There's going to be many different people that have different perspectives and different understandings. As a white woman living in North America, born in New Zealand, but only by about 3 generations, before that Ireland and Scotland, like I've had to really understand. It's like, well, hold on. As again, I reference Robin Wall Kimmerer because I loved her definitions of the term native versus indigenous.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there is an incredible body of wisdom of right relationship with spirit and right relationship with land that has been carried through the lineage of native communities, that has been completely and utterly disgustingly engaged with by the colonialism white mentality. I'm not saying skin color, I'm saying mentality of colonialism, patriotism, patriarchy. But white mentality is not a skin color, but it is predominantly experienced by the privilege of that mentality has come through that lineage. But as Robin Wall Kimmerer expresses, there's a difference between native, which means your bloodline can be traced to holding this body of wisdom in right relationship with spirit and land, and indigenous. And indigenous is not limited to native. And, this is a very tricky subject for many people. And as a yogini, learning, listening, worshiping the land where I rest, where I'm karmically bound to, I did not choose to come to this place. This place called me. It is my responsibility to learn and remember how to come into right relationship. Now, whether that comes through Vedanta and Tantra, whether that comes through the Celtic lineage, because the Celtic lineage is, and the Scottish lineage is very much in same right relationship and resonance, the same bandwidth of resonance as native. Mm-hmm. Because it's not about humans being in relationship with other humans of like, the indigenous and the native, blah, 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 blah. It's about humans in relationship with spirit and with land as spirit. And I think we got to stop looking at each other and looking at where we stand and what our hearts can resonate with, because the trees are not looking at your skin color. The trees are looking at the resonance of your heart.
Yeah.
The trees themselves have said to me, when a being walks barefoot on our tummy with thank yous on every heartbeat, then they sow gold into the land with every step. This is what the Ma Ponderosa has said to me. When my two dogs went missing, I was out morale picking like 30K out into the back of the Purcell Mountains, where there was a wildfire a couple of years ago. And it was a mom and like a 4-month-old puppy. And this mother dog, she had born her little puppies into my hands. And I just loved these beings, the puppy dogs. I did love the puppy dogs with everything I got. And they went off and they chased something. I thought they were with my husband. My husband thought they were with me. They must have chased a deer or something, and they were missing. And I left my sweater there. I came back the next day. I left a new sweater there so they could feel that my scent was reactivated. And I told the trees there, I will come back. I will come back. I will, I hired a psychic, and they were like, they're still alive. And I'm like, great. And after about 4 days of going back and forth, which is a long way to drive back and forth every day out there, I finally, and I feel that this was the point of the entire experience. I finally got to my knees. I finally was just like, I've done everything humanly possible. And if I am a divine being in communion with the divine presence of Gaia, then it's not just me that has to do this. So I took my tears, my ugly tears, my swearing like a sailor. I can get a little feisty. My swearing like a sailor, like, you fix this, like, you've got to find these dogs. Like, if you're like the fungus is like going through the whole forest, and I believe that you can talk to each other, and the birds, I know you can talk to the birds, and I know the birds will listen to you, and I know you can get messages to the animals, and I know that this is like alive. If you want me to stop living like you're not alive, then you have to start talking to me. And I took my tears and I poured them, like rubbed them into the bark of the Ma ponderosa, and I like lost it at the foot of her. And I just got this really strong frequency of a message that said, you're right, but if we find your dogs, we have to write our story. And I'm like, I'm not a writer. I barely have any command of the England language. I'm dyslexic. I can't spell. My grammar's terrible. And they were like, you have to write a story. If you have to write how you've come into remembrance of right relationship with land. If we find the dog, if we can get the dogs. And I was like, right, you find the dogs, I'll write your book, in that spicy kind of way. So the next day we went to a farmer's market, sold a bunch of bread, came home exhausted. And I said to my husband, let's just go out once more. I've cried so much this week. Let's just go out once more. And we were driving out, and about a kilometer before where we lost them, as we were driving down the road, these two little dogs just came around the corner and started running towards the truck. And my husband stops the truck. And like before he stops the truck, I'm like halfway out the door, like falling out of the truck. And the little puppy runs away because she's scared. But the mama recognized it was me, and I just fell to the ground in the middle of the road. And then the mama dog just cried, and she cried and cried as she ran to me, and she just jumped into my arms. And then the puppy realized that it was fine, and she jumped into my arms too. And then that was 2019, and I'm like, now I got to write this book. So I'm in the last stages of writing Land's Breath as part of my agreement. And to do that, I had to stop teaching for about a year. I had to stop teaching, and I had to go into tree school and listen. And I would sit under the ponderosa and I would start writing the story and the transmission of the story of what was important for the humans to go through to learn to remember came through in this entire story. And I'm hoping it'll come out next year sometime. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I can't wait to read it. That's like
me neither.
This is the kind of thing, like this is why reading Robin Wall Kimmerer was so important to me and so revolutionary, is because it's not out there. Like it's not out there. Like this is not information that is being shared regularly and stood for and normalized in our society. Like it's not. And it was like a homecoming to me. So please share that. I'll tell everyone I know that it's there, because it needs to just the repeated message. And let them love you. Let the trees love you. Let the earth love you. Like they're constantly communicating their oneness with us, constantly.
Yeah,
I'm glad you got your dogs back.
Oh, I did.
I'm glad. What are your dogs' names?
Well, the mom was Tuppence and the baby was Bubbles. And that was in the
Bubbles.
Tuppence and Bubbles. And
Hi folks, this is just a trigger warning to let you know that there's a little bit of puppy grief that happens. Nothing major or graphic, but I won't submit you to beloved pet loss without your permission. So skip to 2235 if you're not here for it. Śivani does share the story with the context of grief as a tool for spiritual growth and wisdom, but it's your choice and I don't want to spring it on you.
That was in the spring, and then in the fall that year they went missing again because it was hunting season and there's carcasses laid about from the hunters, and of course the dogs can smell it, and they went missing again. And then that night it was such a perfect storm that night that they went missing, about 10:30 at night, Bubbles came back, but Tuppence didn't. And the next morning I came down with such an acute ear infection. I actually had to go to hospital and have a general anesthetic and have surgery on my ear. And when I came back, I could hardly walk. So I took a walking stick and I was walking around trying to find Tuppence. And when I sat in my living room, actually, I've never told this story before, so I trust why it's coming through now, but Tuppence gone because she was like my child. But Bubbles was there. And when I would call Tuppence, Bubbles would howl for her mom. And I could feel something bubbling up inside of me. And I told my husband, please take our son and don't come back for a couple of hours because I'm about to lose my shit. And I sat on the floor. I still had general anesthetic. I could hardly hear out of one ear. I was really sick. And my dog was missing again. And I put my hands on the floor and I closed my eyes, and I could viscerally, like not just imagine, but viscerally, my body went through the entire experience of birthing a child. And in this visceral experience, it was in Ireland with the nuns, of birthing a child and this child being taken from me before I could see it. And that's what Tuppence leaving brought forth out of me, was this collective grief of the children of the light being taken by the religious, by the power over. And I can't think of another example except for maybe losing my son that would have on the resonance level brought that depth of despair and grief to the surface for me. And then within a couple of days, I got very strong intuition that they were at a carcass and the wolves came, and Bubbles, Tuppence would have told Bubbles to go and would have tried to protect her puppy and was killed. And so she showed me what happened to her. But really, there's that seed of memory would have stayed inside of me if I had not had to go through that experience. So all of these experiences we're having, they're to stimulate memory so that we can not hold it anymore, because that's the weight we're carrying, this grief of these different things. So so Tuppence isn't with us anymore, but Bubbles is, my little Bubblitas, and she's a joy, as you would imagine.
Yes.
But
they're hard to lose. Yes.
Yeah. She's a border collie. She's a purebred border collie. So she is high energy. Land is always teaching us, whether it's through the animals or through the trees or through the birds. There's always communication going on if we have the ears to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I have a need and a desire to share this depth of love that I have for nature, trees, animals, everything, that I've never felt before. It's always been something that I've hidden, because the response that you get when you say, oh, well, like plants and trees and animals just as valuable as people, and people are like, what? And you're like, okay, I'm gonna keep that to myself from now on.
No, please don't. Please don't.
I know, but that's,
sing it loud.
It's necessary. This is what's happening right now, and it's what's needed.
Yeah. And even it's so funny in writing Land's Breath, because it's written from 3 different paradigms of consciousness. You have somebody who's asleep trying to wake up, you've got somebody who's awake, and then you have the land herself as a voice. And so what's really been fascinating for me and really fun is to not only connect to the frequency of that paradigm that they're functioning from, but writing it in that way. In what letters do you capitalize? How do you speak of raven without objectification of the raven? You know, if you're asleep, you would say that raven. If you're awake, you would say raven, like they're part of your family, right?
So true.
So then I'm trying to write in the book like these different levels of awareness to the languaging, because English is such a rudimentary, clunky, objectifying language. Like, how in the world are we supposed to shift consciousness into a realm that is sentient and connected when our mother tongue literally is objectification? Like, how we've got to start actually speaking differently.
You're right. The one advantage that English has is that it can be non-gendered. Like that's the only advantage I can see
it's not
right
like
now.
French or Spanish where it's
right,
like,
exactly.
It's a male ladder and it's a female bucket. You know, it's like, really?
Yeah, and that can't do, like, that has to affect your brain. It has to affect your ability to perceive. Like, it has to. So yes, talking differently, I think is necessary. I think that's really interesting that you saw that and recognized that as you were writing. That's really
and then you give it to an editor and they're like, why is this capitalized? Why do you not have the? And I'm like,
just
really?
Leave it alone.
Yeah. But this does not make sense. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And, you know, maybe you don't want to publish it and that is totally fine. But I have to, my contract is with Ma Ponderosa. My contract is not with a publisher that is trying to feed it to the humans at where the humans are at. My contract is to Ma, and just trust that it'll be created and it will come out. And then in 20 years,
well, it'll go where it's needed.
It will be there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Love that. Can't wait to read it.